Shifting focus, a day after the destruction of the critical Novokakhovka Dam in Ukraine, the scale of the disaster is slowly beginning to unfold. Thousands of people on both sides of the front line have been impacted. Ukrainian President Zelensky visited Kherson and met the injured in hospital. He claimed that the destruction of the dam has left thousands without access to drinking water. Meanwhile, in his first reaction to the dam breach, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called the attack a barbaric act. Yesterday, Russia claimed that Ukraine attempted an unsuccessful attack on Bakhmut. And today, as a counter-attack, Russia attacked Ukrainian units around Berkivka.
The situation in the occupied part of the Kherson region is absolutely catastrophic. The occupiers have simply abandoned the people in these dreadful conditions. Without rescue, without water, they are left on the rooftops in flooded communities. Now, a clear and prompt response from the world is needed to what is happening. It is even impossible to accurately determine how many people in the temporarily occupied territory of the Kherson region may die without rescue, without drinking water, without food, without medical assistance. Our military and special services, to the extent possible, despite the shelling, are saving people. Extensive efforts are needed. It is necessary for international organizations such as the Red Cross to immediately get involved in the rescue operation and help people in the occupied part of the Kherson region. Each life lost there is a verdict to the existing international architecture and international organizations that have lost the ability to save lives. If an international organization is not present in the zone of this catastrophe, it means it does not exist at all. It is incapable. Ukraine and our government have made all the necessary requests.
Про активізацію роботи представників МАГАТЕ на станції, але зрозуміло, що поки окупанти там, повної безпеки не уявити. Тому деокупація України – це безальтернативне завдання.
The flood levels from the destruction of the Novokakhovka Dam in Ukraine are expected to reach their peak Wednesday, but the scale of the devastation across large parts of the region has brought fresh heartbreak in what is still an active war zone. It's now threatening a new wave of homelessness, disease, toxic chemical contamination, and even warnings of floating landmines in this ecological disaster. This is the city of Kherson, which was once occupied by Russian forces before Ukraine's military retook it. It's where Reuters camera crew found this resident, who's saying her grandmother is trapped on the first floor of a building with her cats and dogs. She was brought there yesterday thinking it would be safer for her. Alas, it was not. Elsewhere in the city is Irina, an animal rescue volunteer. She says her group has already recovered up to 30 dogs. They're trying to save whatever animals they can. But first, they need to wait for a boat so they can go out and save more. Russian state media are reporting that although the water levels may have peaked, the floods are expected to remain for up to 10 days. The long-term damage is another matter. Ukraine's government says the destruction of the dam, which it blames on Russia, is threatening to leave hundreds of thousands of residents without access to drinking water. It also says it will turn what was once farmland into swamps and turn other areas into desert. Russia blames Ukraine for the disaster and has imposed a state of emergency in the areas that it controls, such as this town, Novokakhovka, where the destroyed dam is. Resident Valery Melnik's home is flooded, but he says he won't leave. He wants to stay, he says, because the war can't go on forever.
All the children are from the Belgorod region. A lot of them are from the Shebeniko district. You will understand how tense the situation is there now. The other kids are from Starый Oskol, Graivoron district, from Belgorod itself.
So we're still establishing definitively the cause of the attack on the dam in Ukraine, but I want people to know that we're playing our part to support the Ukrainians in their response. We've provided resources to the United Nations and the Red Cross in advance, anticipating incidents like this. Those resources are now being moved into the region to help support those families affected. This is an appalling act, and hundreds of thousands of people are being affected by it. We'll continue to provide support for the Ukraine.
Right, I'm joined by Ruslan Botnik, director of the Ukrainian Institute of Politics. Thank you, Ruslan, for joining us on CNN News 18. What is the latest update that you're getting in the wake of this dam breach?
We have no such new information, but I can say that we are lucky, Ukrainians are lucky, because the main part of the dam is not broken. I'm talking about that part which is under the water. Only the hydroelectric plant was broken, but not the dam which are under the water. And so it give us a possibility to avoid a high level of water, high wave, and to avoid to losing a lot of lives. So we are lucky from this side, but at the same time, of course, Ukraine has a great, huge economical, infrastructural, and agro and other losses from this situation. Almost half of region of south of Ukraine, near the Black Sea region, will be destroyed and exhausted because of this catastrophe.
Right. And Ruslan, the pitch that's coming in from a lot of experts when it comes to this dam breach is that this was deliberately done by the Russians to hamper the Ukrainian counteroffensive.
I think Russia has much more reasons to block this dam, but I don't know what happened exactly, and nobody knows. I think so. We need international commission, something like this, international investigation for this case, because the breaking of this dam is a very bad example for continue this war, and Ukraine has much more bigger dams and broken of which should make a real catastrophe for human lives. So we need to investigate this situation. But in any case, Russia has real reasons to block this dam, because the flooding of this region saved the Russian flank, left Russian flank in defense in the time when Ukrainian counteroffensive operation started in the south of Ukraine. Moreover, even the water fall down in the Black Sea in a week, maybe later, all these grounds or all these fields will be very wet, and there will not be any possibility to put their armored vehicle to cross the river and to start elaborating these lands for a month. So I think that Russia has a real big military reasons to do it, and even taking account the Russian losses, talking about the water to Crimea, flooding Russian occupied territories, but the military reasons were the main in this situation.
Right. And there are a lot of concerns being raised over the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant as well, Ruslan, because people are saying that this dam was essential for the supply of water for the cooling operations. Any concerns over there that there could be a potential nuclear incident in the wake of this attack?
Yes, it's a huge risk because the time count started. Zaporizhia nuclear power plant has water refrigerators for cooling down the nuclear power plant reactors and so on. And this station has only 2 months water reserve. If the personnel of this nuclear power plant will not find another decision for the next 2 months, we will take in the beginning of August, maybe in the middle of August this year, we will stand on the situation when there real risk of nuclear power damage broke, we will be standing before our faces. And this is very dangerous situation. I think the International Agency of Atomic Energy, another international organization, should start as quick as possible the dialogue how to give the water for the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The lowest level water when this nuclear power plant which be used from the Dnieper is 12 meter 70 centimeters. Today, 1 hour ago, it was on 13 meters. Only 30 centimeters was above the lowest possible level to obtain the water from the Dnieper.
Right. Thank you, Ruslan, for getting us the latest when it comes to the crisis emerging in the wake of this dam breach amid the war in Ukraine. As the crisis continues, we get you more reports from Ground Zero.
It's a very difficult situation for people in Kherson right now because they are already suffering the consequence of the war for a long time. So it's a new dimension of a situation that was already bad. The humanitarian needs in Kherson are high. Since the government of Ukraine retook control of the city in November last year, hostilities didn't stop. Otherwise, it increased, actually impacting people's ability to access the most basic services. Water is a challenge and has always been a challenge in Kherson. Electricity has been a challenge. Access to food is a challenge. So now the situation is only getting worse. And the coping strategies or coping mechanisms for this population is already really low. The extension of the flooding is massive and the water is still increasing. So we do know of people, particularly in areas that are now under Russian control, at least the image that we have seen and information that we gather, that people are really stranded in areas completely flooded without any means to live. In the areas that are under Ukrainian control, people are trying to live, but they want to stay close to their homes. So most of the people that evacuated, we have more or less around 2,000 people that they had to leave their homes. Their homes were flooded. They are trying to stay close. They are staying here. Some city in parts that are not flooded of the same city. The consequence of the disaster is not going to be seen. It's not going to stop when the waters recede. The impact is going to be long term. The agriculture is going to be impacted. As we all know, this area is heavily contaminated by mines and explosives. It has a consequence for this as well. Irrigation systems are broken. Water supplies, 700,000 people depends on water from the reservoir from Kakhovka. The level of the reservoir is dropping. So we are at risk of having 700,000 people that cannot have clean water at home. Food production, as I mentioned, it's going to be for a long time, so the response is going to have to last for long as well. We have already teams on the ground. We have 2 UN agencies, but also our partners from NGOs. As I mentioned yesterday, there were representatives from 5 UN agencies in Kherson. I am traveling myself today with our head of agency here, with the humanitarian coordinator Denise Brown,